This has to be a joke. High Counselor Vrina of the Galactic Science Directorate stared at the holographic projection hovering before him. His 3 eyes, usually slow to blink, twitched erratically. The assembled panel of the galaxy's most esteemed scientists, physicists from the Calvari Corps, terraformers from the Xanthal Alliance, and energy theorists from the Cerethian Collective, shared his disbelief. Yet the assignment was real, a rudimentary human engineering problem, submitted by one Vera Patel, an exchange student on the Ziran academic circuit. The task? Design a self-sustaining outpost on planet GX, for 71, using only available resources. It was an introductory-level problem for human engineering students, the kind of assignment given over a weekend, but every attempt by the assembled minds of the Galactic Council had failed. The math didn't add up. The planet's environment, unlivable by all rational standards, made habitation impossible. And yet, Patel's submitted solution worked. Dr. Zenthos, a Zalithian atmospheric scientist, flicked his tendrils in frustration. This should be infeasible. GX, for 71, experiences electromagnetic storms strong enough to fry starship hulls. Its gravity is 1.8 times galactic standard. Its soil is chemically inert. Not to mention, added Professor Zalter of the Cerethians, his translucent skin shimmering with stress. The temperature variance alone should make any human structure collapse within days. And yet, murmured Vrina, the humans claim it's trivial. Silence. No one had an answer. After much deliberation and an embarrassing moment where a Calvari physicist suggested the humans might be sorcerers, the council reached a singular, troubling conclusion. Either humans had made a critical mistake in their calculations, or they understood something the rest of the galaxy didn't. And so, with reluctance, they sent a message to Commander Elias Rains. Mission briefing. Aboard the UGS Vanguard. Let me get this straight, said Commander Elias Rains, arms crossed as he leaned against the ship's central console. The best scientific minds in the galaxy can't solve an undergrad's homework, and now they want us to prove it's possible. That's the gist of it, replied Dr. Anika Bowes, her tone even but laced with amusement. They're completely stumped. A slow grin spread across Rain's face. I love it when we scare the bureaucrats. The mission was set. A full deployment to GX for 71 to prove, in real conditions, that Patel's design worked. The team had 1 month to set up a sustainable outpost, monitored by alien observers who were convinced the attempt would fail. Failure was not an option. Meet the crew. The UGS Vanguard was a workhorse of vessel, rugged, outdated, but reliable, much like its crew. Commander Elias Rains, a veteran of countless deep space missions, Rains had a reputation for solving problems with equal parts brute force and sheer audacity. Galactic diplomats called him reckless. Humans called him effective. Dr. Anika Bowes, a quiet genius. Bowes' mind worked like a supercomputer, solving problems faster than most species could comprehend. She had a gift for making the impossible sound embarrassingly simple. Carlos Luni Ortega, an engineer who believed that if it ain't broke, you're not pushing it hard enough. Ortega was the kind of guy who turned spare parts into fusion reactors, usually while drinking coffee. Jean Sue Park, the dreamer, a visionary with an eye for what could be, Jean Sue had a habit of seeing past immediate obstacles to the grander picture. He wanted more than survival. He wanted humanity to thrive where others fear to tread. Together, they made up Project Homebound, and their task? To turn a death world into a home. Departure and first impressions. As the Vanguard touched down on GX for 71, the landing thrusters struggled against the gravity, rattling the entire ship. A Cerethian scientist, watching from the comms channel, winced audibly. Your vessel appears to be experiencing structural stress, he said, his bioluminescent skin pulsing yellow with alarm. Rains, strapping himself into his seat, simply grinned. Nah, she's just singing. A heavy thud announced touchdown. They had arrived. The landing ramp lowered with a hiss, revealing an alien wasteland. The landscape was jagged, blackened rock, lashed by dust storms that crackled with ionized energy. The sky churned in a sickly mix of deep violet and crimson, lightning flashing in the distance. The air was thin, breathable only with assistance. To the alien observers, it was a death sentence. To the humans, it was Tuesday. Ortega stepped forward, surveying the horizon. All right, who's ready to break every OSHA regulation in the book? Bo sighed. Please don't say that while the aliens are listening. A xanthobiologist on the observation team clicked his mandibles in dismay. Your species is deeply unsettling. Thanks, said Ortega, already setting up a portable generator. First order of business, establishing a foothold. Rains wasted no time. Bose, you and Jean Sue get the environmental stabilizers online. Ortega, start deploying the base modules. We need to prove habitation is viable before the next storm rolls in. The alien scientists monitored each step with skeptical curiosity. Bose modified the atmospheric processors to extract trace amount of oxygen from the storm-charged air, something the aliens had deemed impossible. Jean Sue repurposed an old deflector shield to stabilize the temperature, creating a microclimate that countered the extreme heat shifts. Ortega, against all better judgment, used parts from a broken thruster to amplify the solar battery efficiency by 400%. It started smoking, but he shrugged it off. Within 6 hours, the first habitable structure was standing. The galactic scientists were silent. Then, in a whisper, one of them muttered, "That shouldn't work." Rain smirked. "Yeah, we get that a lot." Closing scene. Doubt turns to unease. As the first day ended, the alien scientists huddled in a private channel, whispering among themselves. "This defies all logic," muttered Dr. Zenthos. "They shouldn't be able to adapt this quickly." "They are improvising," added Zalter. "That is not how science is done." And yet, the humans were succeeding. From the command tent, Rains leaned back, sipping from a thermos. The mission had barely begun, and already, the cracks in the galaxy's understanding were starting to show. He grinned. This was going to be fun. We should be dead. Carlos loony. Ortega leaned back against a supply crate, wiping sweat and soot from his forehead. The makeshift power grid hung beside him. Functional, but only barely. "This is the part where I remind everyone that we should be dead by now," he said, tossing a burnout capacitor over his shoulder. It landed with a sizzle on the blackened ground, instantly scorched by residual heat. Across from him, Dr. Anika Bose didn't even glance up from her datapad. "Noted. Now get the backup system running before the next storm arrives." Ortega sighed theatrically. No respect for the artist at work. Jean Sue Park nudged him with a boot. "If your art catches fire again, I'm using you as insulation." Commander Elias Rains ignored the banter, staring out at the sky. The next storm was building fast. Above them, swirling violet clouds crackled with plasma lightning, the storm front rolling in like an apocalyptic tide. The alien observers, stationed safely aboard their orbiting vessel, had already begun drafting reports on humanity's impending failure. Rains knew better. He turned back to the team. "All right, let's make this official. The aliens think we'll last another 48 hours, max. Who wants to ruin their day?" Bose adjusted her glasses. "You mean save our lives?" "That too," Rains admitted. Jean Sue grinned. "Now you're speaking my language." Challenge number 1, the air problem. Step 1 of the original impossible assignment was straightforward. Create a breathable atmosphere inside the outpost. The alien scientists had determined this to be unfeasible due to GX 471's toxic air composition. They had run the calculations, accounted for the planet's unpredictable ion storms, and concluded that all available filtration methods would fail. The humans had different ideas. Bose ran her fingers across the modified atmospheric processor, a piece of standard-issue tech she had gutted and rebuilt within the last 6 hours. "The trick," she explained, "isn't filtering out toxins. That would take weeks with conventional systems." Ortega smirked. "So we're just not filtering the toxins?" "Correct." Silence. Jean Sue blinked. I'm not a scientist, but I'm pretty sure breathing poison is bad." Bose didn't look up. "Not if the poison gets neutralized before it enters your lungs." She tapped the processor. "I've introduced a colony of genetically modified extremophiles. They feed on airborne contaminants, breaking them down into trace amounts of nitrogen and oxygen. Rains raised an eyebrow. So, microbes that eat poison poop out air? Bose exhaled. I despise that phrasing, but yes. Jean-Sue grinned. That shouldn't work. It's already working, Bose replied, gesturing to the console. CO2 levels are stabilizing. Within 3 hours, the outpost will have breathable air. From orbit, the alien observers were visibly distressed. The microbes should have died on contact. One Calvari scientist sputtered in a private transmission. They didn't. Bose murmured under breath. Rains chuckled. All right, one crisis down. Next, challenge number 2, the energy crisis. The next major obstacle was power. GX 471 storms weren't just unpredictable, they were destructive. Conventional solar panels were stripped away within hours due to the extreme winds. Battery storage, meanwhile, drained rapidly in the planet's volatile climate. The alien scientists had determined this meant long-term habitation was impossible. Naturally, Ortega took it as a personal challenge. Listen, he said, waving a wrench at the others. The storm's the problem, right? Right. Rains confirmed. So we make it the solution. Jean-Sue tilted his head. You mean harness the storm instead of fighting it? Damn right, Ortega grinned. If the wind wants to tear everything apart, we make it work for us. We build an ion harvesting array that channels the storm's energy straight into our systems. Bose frowned. That could overload the entire grid. Yeah, Ortega admitted, but only if I screw up. Jean-Sue laughed. That doesn't fill me with confidence. Relax, Ortega said, already tinkering. If this works, we'll have unlimited power. Rains clapped his hands together. All right, let's get to work before the storm eats us alive. T-minus 3 hours until ion storm. The team moved fast. Bose optimized the power grid to handle unpredictable energy surges. Jean-Sue modified the stabilizers to withstand the storm's turbulence. Ortega welded together a series of scavenged metal rods, creating a lightning absorption array from what should have been scrap. And just in time, the storm hit like a cosmic sledgehammer. The sky exploded in electric fury, violet arcs of plasma licking across the horizon. The outpost shook under the onslaught, warning sirens flaring red. The alien observers were certain the experiment had reached its end. Then the storm fed the grid. Power surged into the base instead of against it. The lights flickered, then glowed brighter than ever. We have power. Ortega hooped, punching the air. Jean-Sue checked the readings. Not just power. We have a surplus. We're generating more energy than we can even use. In orbit, the alien scientists were losing their collective minds. This is not possible, one of them shrieked. The system should have collapsed. It hadn't. Rains exhaled, shaking his head in amusement. You know, I think I'm starting to see why the aliens can't solve our homework. They're overthinking it, Bose agreed. Jean-Sue grinned. Maybe next time, Patel should send them something harder. Ortega smirked. I dunno. I think we're about to fail them again. Rains turned to face him. What now? Ortega pointed past the perimeter wall. The ground was shifting. Closing scene. Something new. The first assumption had been that GX 471 was barren, that nothing could survive here, that humanity had conquered a wasteland. But now, as the humans watched, something moved beneath the rock. Rain's hand went to the sidearm. Jean-Sue whispered, That's not geological activity, is it? Ortega exhaled. Nope. In orbit, the alien scientists had already begun screaming. Bose narrowed her eyes. Well, this just got interesting. That's not supposed to be alive. Jean-Sue Park wasn't a geologist, but he was reasonably certain rocks shouldn't move. And yet, the terrain beyond the outpost perimeter was shifting, blackened ridges rising and falling, rippling like something beneath the surface was stretching awake. For a long moment, the team just watched. Then Ortega broke the silence. Okay, so there's a non-zero chance we just build our base on top of something's nest. Commander Elias Rains exhaled slowly, hand still resting on his sidearm. Tell me you're joking. Dr. Anika Bose's eyes flicked between her datapad and the shifting landscape. Her voice was eerily calm. I'm not convinced this is a nest. Ortega gestured wildly. Oh, right, yeah, because clearly the rock we're standing on growing a pulse is a totally normal thing. Jin-Soo frowned, stepping closer to the outpost sensor array. The readings were odd. This doesn't match biological activity, he murmured. No organic material, no heat signatures, but the movement is coordinated. Rains turned to Bose. Thoughts? She hesitated. I think we might have misclassified this planet. Ortega groaned. Oh, great. Not just a death world. A misunderstood death world. Bose ignored him, fingers flying over her datapad. We assumed GX. 471 was barren, incapable of sustaining life. But what if it's alive in a way we didn't expect? Like what? Jin-Soo asked. A hive mind? Some kind of subterranean organism. Bose's brow furrowed. Or something even stranger. The team fell silent. Then the ground lurched. When the floor stops being floor. The entire outpost shuddered, metal straining under a force none of them could see. The perimeter fence bent inward, groaning under pressure. The ground beneath their feet flexed. Not to alarm anyone, Ortega said, but the planet is absolutely trying to kill us right now. Rains was already in motion. Bose, tell me what we're dealing with. Jin-Soo, get a drone in the air. Ortega, make sure that fence holds. Jin-Soo sprinted toward the drone controls, launching a high-altitude scan. The drone zipped into the storm-choked sky, cameras flickering through multiple spectrums. What it revealed sent a cold chill through the team. The ground wasn't just moving, it was reconfiguring. The planet reacts. Jin-Soo fed the drone footage to the team's HUDs. From above, the terrain rippled outward in concentric waves, like a liquid reacting to a stone's impact. The pattern was spreading from their base. Ortega squinted. Is it reacting to us? Looks that way, Rain said. Bose's mind raced. This isn't natural geological activity. This is... Before she could finish, the ground split open. A jagged crevasse tore across the landscape, blackened rock peeling back like a wound. Beneath it, a faint, eerie glow pulsed, rhythmic, deliberate. It wasn't lava. It was something else. That, Jin-Soo said flatly, is deeply concerning. Contact. The alien observers had been watching in real time. Now they were panicking. A Cerethian scientist's voice crackled over the comms. Your position is no longer viable. Evacuate immediately. Rains didn't move. Negative, he said. We need more data before we... The ground beneath the outpost twisted. A section of the foundation lurched upward, tilting the structure at a dangerous angle. Ortega grabbed onto a nearby crate before he could slide into the widening crevasse. Okay, screw science, he shouted. We are leaving. Hold, Rains barked. Jin-Soo, get that drone lower. The drone descended, scanning the chasm's depths. What it saw made Bose's stomach drop. Down below, past the rock in the eerie glow, something was looking back. The eyes in the deep. The shape was indistinct. Shifting like liquid metal, barely visible against the glow. But there was no mistaking the pattern. Bose whispered, It's aware of us. Jin-Soo's fingers clenched. Guys, this planet isn't just reacting. It's watching. Ortega was already moving toward the emergency evac controls. Great. Fantastic. Let's go before the planet decides it doesn't like us. The ground lurched again. The outpost's east wall buckled. The drone feed flickered. Then, for the first time since landing on GX, 471, the planet spoke. It wasn't a voice, not exactly, more like a deep vibrational hum that resonated to the air and bone alike. A frequency, a pattern, a message. Bose's breath hitched. It's trying to communicate. Rains frowned. Do we even know how to respond? Jin-Soo swallowed. If we get this wrong, we might not get a second chance. Closing scene. The choice. The alien observers were frantically demanding an evacuation. The ground beneath them was shifting, rising, falling, unstable. And now, GX 471 was speaking. Commander Rain stared into the glowing crevasse, weighing their options. Run or listen. He exhaled. We stay. Ortega groaned. You always say that right before we almost die. Rain smirked. Then let's make sure we don't. Bose took a breath. All right, then let's talk to a planet. Let's talk to a planet. The vibration in the air deepened, a low thrumming resonance that rattled through their bones. It wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. It was deliberate. Dr. Anika Bose's mind raced. This wasn't just some mindless planetary reaction. It was structured, methodical, an attempt at communication. Ortega, still gripping a console for balance, squinted down at the glowing fissure. Okay, so, serious question. How we talk back without pissing off the literal ground beneath our feet? Jean Sue Park was already working, analyzing frequency patterns. If this is a language, we need to identify repetition, syntax. Bose interrupted, eyes widening. No time for that. We're thinking too human. Commander Elias Rains tilted his head. Explain. She gestured to the shifting landscape. GX. 471 isn't speaking with words, syntax, or even sound. It's using resonance, vibrations of the planet itself. If we want to respond, we have to do it on its terms. Ortega scoffed. Yeah? And how do we resonate with a planet? Jean Sue blinked, then snapped his fingers. The ion harvesting array. Bose's eyes lit up. Of course! The array isn't just pulling power from the storms. It's feeding energy back into the environment. Rains nodded, catching on. So if we manipulate the output... Jean Sue grinned. We send a message. The first words of an impossible conversation. The alien observers were in hysterics. Do not attempt to communicate. The Calvari lead scientist barked over comms. This is far beyond your species' understanding. Rains muted them. All right, people, he said, eyes steady. Let's make history. Ortega's fingers flew across the controls, recalibrating the ion array's frequency output. Bose! Give me a pattern to send. She thought fast. We start with basic repetition. Something unmistakably artificial. Jean Sue nodded, configuring the signal. A sequence of 3 pulses, followed by silence. Then we repeat. Rains folded his arms. A universal low. Ortega took a deep breath. Here goes nothing. He hit send. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the ground answered. Understanding the unknown, the pulses returned, matching their pattern, then altering it. The response wasn't random. It was interactive. Jean Sue nearly dropped his datapad. It's learning. It's adapting. Bose's breath caught. GX. 471 isn't just alive. It's intelligent. The planet shifted again, but not violently this time. The fissures narrowed, the terrain stabilizing as the rhythm of communication continued. Guys, Ortega whispered, eyes locked on a glowing chasm. I think it was scared of us. Rains frowned. Scared. Bose nodded slowly. Think about it. We arrived, disrupted the surface, redirected its storms, started pumping foreign energy into ground. Jean Sue finished the thought. It probably thought we were attacking it. A moment of silence passed. Then Rains exhaled. So what now? Bose straightened. Now we show it that we're not a threat. Building a relationship with a world. Over the next 3 hours, they worked, refining their communication, establishing a simple dialogue of frequencies. Each time they sent a pattern, GX, 471 responded, adjusting, mirroring. It wasn't language as humans knew it, but it was undeniably intentional. And then, something incredible happened. GX, 471 changed its pulse pattern first. A deliberate shift, unprompted. Jean Sue's voice was hushed with awe. It's teaching us now. Bose's hands trembled slightly as she recorded the sequence. This is first contact. And not just with a species, with a biosphere. Ortega whistled. Okay, but real talk. How we tell we don't want to be swallowed whole? Rain smirked. You're assuming it hasn't already figured that out. The ground beneath them had stabilized completely. The violent shifting had stopped. The sky, once choked with storms, was beginning to clear. GX. 471 wasn't pushing them away anymore. It was listening. The universe just got bigger. The alien observers, once so certain of humanity's failure, were dead silent. Then, a single message came through from the Calvari lead scientist. Explain. Rains grinned. Gladly. Bose exhaled. This changes everything. Jinsu nodded. Yeah, because if GX 471 is alive and intelligent, then Ortega finished for him. What other barren worlds had we been ignoring? The question hung between them. Then Rains clapped his hands. All right, team, let's get to work. We just made first contact. Let's not screw it up. As the team set to work refining their new, impossible dialogue, one thought ran through all their minds. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of the universe. And the universe, it was finally listening.